Hopefully this is working now. Everybody should be logged on now. A little bit of a glitch, but hopefully the audio is all set on your end now. I had the best introduction of any Parliament to the People that I've ever had. And of course, there was a glitch in the audio, but that's okay. We're going to do this again. Good morning, everybody. My name is Matthew Green, and I'm your very proud NDP federal candidate right here in Hamilton Center, seeking re-election in this very, very, very tumultuous time, this election 45. So the purpose of Parliament to the People is to connect people to the process of government. Hopefully we get we got folks working. You can hear me now. I do appreciate that. I'm working across multiple platforms using technology to the best that I can to digitally door knock. We know that we have traditional tactics of campaigning. We do phone banking. We have people in here all the time calling through our lists. We go door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. And now we're digitally door knocking. We're digitally door knocking with you to bring you into the discussion. So, as I said before, if you're online and you have the ability to give me a wave or a good morning, I'm watching all the platforms that I possibly can to engage with people and hopefully hear their comments, hopefully have the chance to um, yeah, I think we got the audio sorted out on Instagram now. If you're on Instagram, go ahead and let me know that you can hear me okay. We're doing the best we can, but again, we're testing this new platform out and hopefully the audio is going across. Okay, shout out to you, Shaja. You let me know that you can hear me. Good morning, Michelle, Avi, Dylan, all these folks, Mara. Oh, Tej. Yes, Keenan. It's like the romper room. It's like the digital romper room. I love it. I appreciate you all. If you want to join the discussion, one of the best things about Parliament to the People is I love to invite people onto the platform to let me know who you are, where you're from, and what you're all about. We are into things. We had an amazing campaign office opening over the weekend. Dozens of volunteers went out into community. They were phone banking, they were going door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood, talking with people in these deeply uncertain times. We know that people are afraid of what's next. And a lot of it feels like we don't have power in these moments. It feels like a lot of this is out of our control. But you know what we can control is we can control the local voices that are going to be amplified in this election to ensure that the working class conditions of people are well represented. So I'm seeing some comments here that the audio might have gone again. Let me know if that is the case. Audio went, it's in and out. I don't know what's going on over here. It looks like it's good. Let me try. Let me try something different then. Let me try something different. Make sure that's there. Yo, right. My apologies. I've now connected the microphone directly into the computer rather than using one of those little dongles. But we got an interesting little setup here. In fact, we got the ability to connect with people across multiple platforms. Shout out if you're on Facebook. Let me know if you are on Instagram. Let me know where you're coming in from because this is new. If you're at home and you have questions, I invite you to please put it in the comment section, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do that. We can go into Q&As. Look at this. We got it all set up here. We do have the ability to have comments that will come down as they arrive, hopefully. I don't know. There it is. There it is. We have our first comment. Every day it's a new issue. Some of us just want to tune out completely after we keep hearing new things. That is by design. The far right strategy, people like Steve Bannon and others, they call it cognitive warfare. They talk about this as though they want to, quote unquote, their words, flood the zone with shit and make it impossible for everyday people to follow along and to fight back. That is absolutely the shock doctrine. Naomi Klein talks about it. It is a tactic that is used by the right, and it is effective because you're absolutely right. It is almost impossible to keep up with absolutely everything that is going on in these tumultuous times. Very difficult to do that. And again, I would argue that like that's by design. They don't want you to keep up with it. They don't want you to feel solidarity with your neighbors, connected with people in struggle, building a unified response. So they're basically like arsonists that just run around society, setting these social and economic fires. Donald Trump, Pierre Poilievre, dividing, pitting us against each other. That's exactly what they're supposed to do. Barbara's quite rightly identified from Facebook. How can we organize when working 2 or 3 jobs? Again, capitalism is meant to reduce us to simply our production for profit. They do not want us to connect around these critical issues. They certainly don't want us organizing, and they sure as hell don't want us fighting back because it serves the people that it serves. This system is not broken. This system is by design. You hear it again and again. And it is hard to understand what's happening because a lot of what we're seeing right now is a reduction to what people are proposing as a 2-party option. They want to import the American style bipartisan 2-party structure to Canada when quite literally that's what led to Donald Trump. Like, for me, one of the hardest things as a New Democrat, our system is a Westminster system. It's not a congressional system. It's a Westminster system that requires strong opposition, that requires diversity of voices, that requires a plurality of the people that are represented. And it works to fend off against, fascism in particular, simply because it doesn't meld and mold all of us together. Like, that's where we're at. And the people who are arguing right now that New Democrats should somehow just go away and sit this election out, I don't care what the polls say. I don't care what some algorithm, formula that is deciding what the strategic vote is here, 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 here. When people talk about strategic voting, it is default to vote Liberal. That is the absolute project that people have. And in a time of uncertainty, in a time of fascism, in a time of our attacks on our democratic institutions, we need more democracy, not less. There is not a scenario, and I need everybody to be very clear about this. People can have feelings about it, but you need to be clear. There is not a scenario where I'm going to capitulate to the Liberal Party or to anybody else. I'm a New Democrat. If I wanted to run as a Liberal and have no platform or no vision for working class people, I would do that. But I didn't because I believe in the principles and the values that our party has. And that's the way democracy should be. It's not a coronation. Democracy is not a thing that's an entitlement. Liberals would have you believe that. But they steered us into this mess. They steered us into this mess because they refuse to deal with the material conditions of people that are struggling, and the people that are struggling are angry. And that reaction, that reactionary politic, is what's driving right-wing fascism. So when I say liberalism is a precondition to fascism, that's what I mean. When Joe Biden takes office and refuses to address the material conditions of working class people, this is what you get. You get Donald Trump. We had to arm wrestle the Liberal Party to do the basic right things around dental care, around pharmacare, around anti-scab. You got 2 right-wing parties, and I would argue, like, you could even put us center left, whatever. I don't care. I'm not aiming for purity politics, but there are choices here. And for so-called socialists or so-called progressives that are out there, somehow suggesting that we just sit this one out so that a goddamn Goldman Sachs union busting multi-millionaire can run our country. If you think that somebody who is not even Bay Street, Wall Street, this is a Wall Street guy, a Goldman Sachs guy, is going to somehow all of a sudden have working class values and working class priorities, that is absurd. That is Stockholm syndrome. So Woo, you got me fired up on a Tuesday morning. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Mark. I appreciate you. We are going live. Mark wants to know how you can help, and that is the very important question. Thank you for asking that question, Mark, because we are in a dogfight. I do not take anybody or anything for granted. One of the biggest challenges we have right here in Hamilton Center is, unfortunately, a lot of people just assume that this is a sure thing. They just assume that we're a safe seat. That is not the case. We are in a very unpredictable time. And it is not the case that there are safe seats anywhere in the country for true progressives, for the Canada's Only Labour Party, the NDP. And look, our Westminster system allows for multiple parties. Our electoral system is designed for two parties, but our parliamentary system is designed for multiple parties. And it is absurd when conservatives or other people would frame parliamentary cooperation. I'm not talking about electoral cooperation. I'm talking about parliamentary cooperation. That when we entered into a confidence supply agreement to force the Liberals to do things that they just voted against in the last session. So in other words, from 2019 to 2021, they voted against anti-scab legislation, dental care, pharmacare, supports for people. Liberals voted against it. We fought for it. We won it in 2021. And now we're wearing it. And somehow conservatives are saying that's undemocratic. So here's my proposition to you. Here's my proposition to Canada, to Hamilton Center. This is what I know to be true. I don't control a lot of things, but I do know when you elect more New Democrats, the material conditions for people in our neighborhoods and communities are served. We cannot do this alone. We are going to need your support. There are no safe seats. I don't take anything or anyone for granted. So that looks like coming into our office. That looks like putting up a lawn sign. That looks like making donations where you can, however you can. We recognize that people are struggling right now. Every dollar counts. We have to run a fully funded campaign. We are up against two corporate war machines. They're going to be fully funded. They're going to be fully funded. Us right here in Hamilton Center, we're going to have to, be very gracious for every dollar we get, and we're going to spend every dollar we get, and we are not going to give up without a fight. I don't give a shit what the polls say, and neither should you. You shouldn't let some formula that doesn't even have connection to what's happening here in Hamilton Center or in the region. For instance, there hasn't been polls here. They do these aggregators, and then somehow they decide who should be, representing the anybody but conservative vote. The Liberal candidate in this election right here is from Mississauga. He drives his Mercedes into Hamilton every day. When I wake up, I put my feet down here. Why does that matter? Because you cannot convince me that a carpetbagger and a parachute from Burlington or Oakville or Mississauga or wherever he's from really has the interests of Hamilton Center at heart. He's a visitor. The conservative, St. Catharines, probably had to use Google Maps just to find his office. Look, our Westminster system has been bastardized. It used to be that we would send people, or at least it was designed to send people from communities to represent their constituents to the Hill, to Parliament, to the House of Commons. But somewhere power has been so concentrated within the leaderships, and then the leaderships of every party become the personification of the party. And then we're in a situation where there's this expectation that we're supposed to represent Parliament back to the people. And that's not it. It's the other way around. You have to have a local interest. There are incredible MPs in every party. There are very talented and intelligent people in every party. And there's some people who, quite frankly, I wonder how they got there. I do. I wonder how they got there. I'm not trying to denigrate them, but they just coattailed whatever moment they were in. No, they don't need to live in the riding, Nikki. Every conservative sign you see is a sign for somebody from St. Catharines. Every Liberal sign you see is a sign for the representative of Mississauga coming to Hamilton. The Pierre Poilievre is going to be in Hamilton today, and he's going to go to Hamilton East Stony Creek, and he's going to meet with a candidate named Ned Currick. Ned Currick is from Stony Creek, But this is a guy who you can watch. I just posted something on Instagram. You can watch it for yourself. Don't take my words for it. Hear his own words. This guy is bragging about being a house flipper. How scummy is it to be on the internet bragging about making millions of dollars off of quick flips while people can't even get into the market, man? Like, this is the problem with the system. You can't expect a guy like Ned Couric to fix the fucking housing crisis when he's profiting from it. That's ridiculous. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to be there today with Pierre Poilievre and this guy, Ned Couric, talking about bringing it home. Bringing it home for who? For the speculators, for the profiteers, for the scummy people who flip homes and drive the prices up just so they can extract the profit. That's profiteering, man. Don't take my word for it. Go on my Instagram and see it for yourself. Like, if that doesn't have you fired up, if you can't see the contradictions of the way in which you're living in your material conditions, I don't know what else will. Laura says she doesn't relate to anybody. I can relate to Sarah Jama, but now none of you in any party. What would you do, Laura, if you were prime minister for a day? What are your priorities? I'm not asking you to relate to me. I'm just trying to have a conversation. And maybe it's relatable, maybe it's not. But people feel quite rightly politically estranged. They feel like they don't belong. I understand that. I can't defend that. I'm not going to defend a system that doesn't represent the full, politic and interests of everyday people. It is the system we have, and I am unwilling to just capitulate it and leave decisions to be made to other people. I'm not going to do that. That's why I got into this 10 years ago as a city councilor. I saw challenges in our neighborhood and decisions that were being made by people who I felt didn't have our best interests at heart, didn't live in our neighborhoods, and who owns what property, living outside the riding. No, I mean, they're telling people. The guy who's running for the Conservative Party couldn't win the nomination in St. Catharines. So they told him to come to Hamilton. And it's my mission that in 5 weeks, I'm going to send him back to St. Catharines. The guy from Mississauga showed up, and that's what he's been doing, telling people that he's from Mississauga and, trying to pull the rabbit out of the hat. That's where we're at. Laura says housing, affordability, access to higher learning. I'd like to make it actually illegal to discriminate against people because organizations and employers still do. Amen to all of those things. So while you might not relate to me and my politics, or at least the way that you perceive them, I relate to you and yours, Laura, because I would agree with all of those things. I'm trying to follow along here on the comment section. We got lots of people tuning in. Shout out if you're on Instagram. Shout out if you are on Facebook. I can't tell what's going on TikTok right now. I haven't been able to monitor that, but maybe I'll try to tune in on TikTok and see what's being said there, because it's not feeding in to my multi-stream. It's not doing it. Let's see on TikTok as well. We're going to meet people everywhere we can. We're going to meet people where they're at. We go door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. All of that is true. And we're digitally door knocking. We're having these conversations with you right now. That is the intention with Parliament to the People, is to meet people where they're at, to have these discussions, to be informed by them. There's no better poll than having these discussions and knocking on the door. So if you're at home right now, if you want to jump on, I would invite you to do that. I would invite you to indicate that you want to join the discussion. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go one step further. I am going to add the link to join the conversation to the chat, on the main chat. Invite guests. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this. I'm talking what I think. My apologies. Let me just post that to Instagram, and then I'm going to post that to our comments here, and hopefully it goes out to the different platforms. Let's see what happens. If you want to join the discussion, feel free to do that. I've just posted it. When you click on that link, it'll send me a notification, and then I'll be able to come back to you. Lots of questions in the chat. Will the federal NDP support different voices and opinions. That was the breaking point for the riding. Sarah Jama didn't toe the. So our federal party, the culture is much different, Mark. I'm sure you can appreciate watching my politics, even right to the end in supporting Sarah in the last provincial election. My solidarity is with principles. I want a party culture where people have solidarity around core principles and shared values. That does not mean we're going to agree on everything. I do not expect of the 40 or so people that are logged on across the different platforms that you're going to agree with everything I say. Quite frankly, some things I say may really bother you, but there's going to be some other common ground issues that are super important to you. Federally, I think you could see the positions that I took on Palestine, some of the positions that I take when talking about the economy. I swear every now and again, nobody's calling me and telling me I have to be perfect. Nobody is calling me and telling me I have to do the respectability politics and, pretend like I'm not angry. Nobody says that to me federally. That's why I'm still in the party. If I didn't feel like I could get to the position that I got to on the genocide in Gaza, in the West Bank, then I too would have been an independent. Here's an important question that I'm going to put to everybody to ask people who are knocking on your door and asking for your vote. This is a critical question. Anybody, you need to ask them what's their red line. What's the thing they care so much about that they'd be willing to leave everything behind, leave the job, the title, whatever, and not be reelected? For me, genocide is a pretty clear red line. If genocide is not your red line, you do not have, in my opinion, the moral authority to govern. Straight up. So that's the calling in. The other thing that I'm trying to say to anybody who will listen, quite frankly, Mark, is that when people talk about the party, because in Canadian politics, everything is so centralized around the leadership, the thing that I'm trying to say is that we are the party. The leader is a spokesperson for the party, but the membership is the actual party. And what I envision for the compelling vision of the future of our country, of our party, is that we're going to be inviting people in. We're going to be inviting people in, and they're going to be members, and there's going to be a place for deliberative democracy. I am not a monarchist. I am what's called a small r Republican, not big R Republican, small r Republican. What does that mean? It means direct deliberative democracy. It means people in their communities deliberating on the issues that matter to them, putting it forward, whether it's with representative models. Proportional representative would be my preferred choice, with a mixed membered option so that you can still have local representation and not just have discussions on party lines. But we absolutely need more democracy, not less. If people think reducing this election to 2 parties is going to come up with any other result but for what we see in the States, you're not following history. You're simply not. The 2-party system elected Trump. The best way that our parliament works is in minority settings, forcing parties to cooperate, forcing the discussion to be put to Canadians so that we can find common ground and we can represent the best material conditions for people across the country. That's what it looks like. Woo, you guys got me fired up. Jay Woodruff, my main man Jay, says, with Carney being just a well-spoken conservative, why are the polls showing people switching support to support a conservative liberal leader and not another party? Well, I think, it's the uncertain times. I don't think people are deeply ideological. I might be, but I am humble enough to realize that is not everybody. Everybody, most folks are just struggling to get by. They see the threat. They quite rightly identify the threat. They identify the threat of fascism. We're having a government talk about for the first time annexing our country, attacking our sovereignty. That is deeply serious. But you need to have people with the kind of conviction, courage, and moral fortitude to actually stand up against fascists. Liberals won't. The Democrats in the United States didn't. They're not doing it now. What makes you think the Liberal Party is going to be any different? New Democrats, Canada's only Labour Party, including our deep, long-standing traditional relationship with the labor movement is absolutely the front lines against fascism. Absolutely. Don't take my word for it. This is not campaigning. You can go online right now in this very moment and Google my name, in Pride, my name in Proud Boys. I have been on the front lines against fascism in Hamilton for the last 15 years. Challenge somebody else to say the same. Have they been toe-to-toe with skinheads? I know that's an extreme, but if you don't have the courage to do that, you're not going to have the courage to take on Trump. I'm going to do that. I don't care who's in government. We are going to stand up against this attack on our sovereignty. Ooh, you got me fired up. So the question is, what do we got now? Peggy, good morning to you. Lots of discussions. If you're on Instagram, I'm doing the best I can to follow along. If you want to join the conversation, you can click the link. NDP isn't aggressive enough. I have been accused of a lot of things, Andrew, but I have never been accused of not being aggressive enough. I can only speak for myself. I think that, Jagmeet's launch, his recent tone is very, very aggressive. It meets the moment, but can we break through? That is the question. I don't know is the answer. I have no control over what happens outside of this riding that I have, from Parkdale to the highway, from the escarpment down to the water. That's my world. I'm connecting with people across the country. I think this is valuable time spent. Every morning I'm going to be trying to do this, but I'm calling you into action. Here's the truth. White knight it all you want, Mark Carney. You can't come back and save us from ourselves. There's nobody coming to save us. That needs to be understood. There's no charismatic leader who's going to sweep in and solve all of our problems. Will not happen. Will not happen with Donald Trump. Will not happen with the housing crisis. Will not happen with the economy, with jobs, with fascism. Our power rests in our collective responsibility to each other. That's the major difference between big L and small L liberalism, where it's literally every man, woman, and child for themselves, versus what we deem to be the values of collective action and collective responsibility. So, Laura, we've been talking and pushing for a national housing strategy for quite some time. Last election, we were talking about building 500,000 affordable homes. We believe that to be part of a major, major shift in our economy. One of the ways in which our government can spend its money on reinvesting in the country in economic turmoil. And absolutely, in terms of rent caps, I believe there needs to be a national accountability on rent caps. People are going to say, oh, but that's provincial. Well, then make the profiteering off of it and the exploitation off of it, make it criminal. I don't care at this point. We need to be aggressive in redistributing, I should say recapturing our housing market from the corporate capture of the real estate industry and the banks. We've been captured. And housing is absolutely a federal responsibility. After World War II, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, was born out of a program called the Victory Homes Initiative. What did that do? It built 1 million homes across the country. They're right here in my neighborhood, up on the mountain, here in the East End, little strawberry huts, they call them, wartime homes. I grew up in one. They built 1 million homes after World War II. Are you telling me we can't do that now? Of course we can. And we must. We have a moral imperative to do it. We absolutely must do it. So if you're at home and you're feeling powerless, if you're feeling like you don't have a voice, if you're feeling confused, you don't know where to start and engage, you started today, you logged on to Parliament to the People. I appreciate you for that. There are so many opportunities for us over these next days and weeks to get involved. You can do that. You can join our movement here in Hamilton Center. If you don't feel like you have a home in whatever riding you're at, join one of our virtual call banks. Call in, have conversations with people. Let's flip the script. Let's do that right here. Let's show people what a compelling alternative looks like when there's collective action, when there's solidarity across our interests. That if somebody's being discriminated against because they have disabilities, that is illegal. It is no less illegal than if they discriminate them against their race, their religion, their gender. That's horrible. We should be fighting for that. We should be fighting for that together. No parle français, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm just reading Laura's comment here. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. We're going to show up for you whether you have the time or not, and we totally recognize that that's totally completely understandable. People are struggling to get by. There's in no way when I call people in, those that can do, in terms of their time and their resources. You're logged on, so you're actually, whether you know it or not, engaging in this discussion, Laura, is a big part of how this all needs to work. That is absolutely the case. So, you know, I don't take that for granted, and I need you to know that, like, you logging on today and having the discussion, give me this feedback, is what's needed. So I appreciate you for that. The momentum isn't aggressive enough. Thank you for opening, mentioning Palestine, of course. Yeah, I said this at a rally 2 days ago, and I believe this to be true. Years from now, they're not going to be questioning whether the genocide happening. That's not going to be up for debate. The question will be, what did you do about it? Where were you? That's going to be the question. That's going to be the moral compass for which this generation is judged. I refuse, as a father, as a human being, um, to let this moment pass without doing everything I can within my power to speak up and speak out against the genocide. All genocides. Gaza, Sudan, Congo, Yemen, all around the world. These systems are interrelated. Settler colonialism, capitalism, imperialism, and they operate in those ways. Val's tuning in, talking about strategic votes, disappointed with the messaging direction. We see what happens provincially. Pull votes from conservative voters, but left-leaning parties. I'm not sure what you're saying. Like, in our election system, it is important to hold everybody accountable. I don't believe Mark Carney is left-leaning. He's told us he's not. The first thing he did is he came in and he eliminated what? He eliminated the Ministry of Labor. He eliminated the Ministry of Women and Gender and People with Disabilities. He eliminated the wage ministry. He gave a tax cut for capital gains. That means for people with incomes over $1 million, for people who have investments that give them an extra $250,000 a year, he waived that so that they're going to continue to tax people on their income and not on their capital. Mark Carney's not left-leaning. I don't care how much he wraps himself in the flag. He's not even Bay Street. The guy's a Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, Brookfield Capital guy. That's who he is. I don't share economic values. He might be nice. He might be nice. He might be reasonable in terms of whatever reasonability looks like for somebody who works in those, lives in those worlds. But I have a responsibility to show contrast and the contradictions. And that includes the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party is not entitled to people's votes. Neither are we. We're in an election. This is actually the time to challenge ideas, to make them defend their positions. Not to concede, not to coronate. This isn't about coronation. I live in Hamilton Center. We have the third lowest household income. Everybody around us is struggling. People are living in tents. I understand what's at stake. But reducing it to this idea that we need to be in a two-party system, that we can't actually critique Mark Carney, is very dangerous. It's a dangerous political future for us if we can no longer engage in critical discourse, challenge, other parties, and somehow we're supposed to go along to get along. Like, that's never the way it is for us, ever. And so I challenge Mark Carney to defend his union busting, at Brookfield, to defend his profiteering as a corporate landlord. Like, As scummy as house flippers like Ned Couric are, who make millions of dollars off of forced appreciation and speculating in the market, when you talk about massive real estate investment corporations like Brookfield, we're talking about a billion times more scummy, profiteering, evicting, evading taxes. Those questions need to be answered to. And just because he happens to be nicer doesn't mean that the impacts of his actions don't still have an impact. I don't know. There's going to be lots for us to disagree on. I know that in times of uncertainty, people want certainty. And I know that Pierre Poilievre is odious. And I know that people think like electing a majority liberal government, it may be in their interests. But I beg to differ. I don't believe that to be true. That's why I'm running as a New Democrat. If I believe that to be true, I'd be running as a liberal. We're in an election. I'm going to criticize Mark Carney. That's not messaging. That's not messaging. That is real facts. So I get fired up on it. I don't support. Hi, Brian. I don't support any private equity funds. Period. So, people who get into goals around populations and stuff, it's a bit unsettling for me. The reason why it's probably funded by a private equity firm is because of the fact that our whole economy is based on low wage earners and consumption. So they basically need more people to work harder to buy more shit. That's how capitalism works in Canada. So that's why they want to have 100 million people here. What I believe in is we need to have tripartite planning. What does that mean? I don't believe government has all the answers. I certainly would. I reject any notion that the market or the private sector has the answers. But I believe in a tripartite government and economic planning, including the labor market, requires to have workers in the working class at the table, to have labor at the table. Then when we're talking about immigration, you come here, you're good enough to work here, you're good enough to stay. You're good enough to stay here, you're good enough to get the wages and the benefits and the pensions of a unionized worker. You should have a pathway into unionization. We can't use newcomers to undercut the wages of working class people and then blame them for it. The same people who want to bring in a surplus army of labor are the same people who are now blaming them for the housing shortage and the healthcare shortage. That is violent. That is socially violent to do that. So I'm of the mind, yes, come. You can come and make Canada your place. We've had multiple generations. We're built on immigration. And when you get here, you should get paid the same. So in other words, if your value to the economy is your skill and your ability to build and create, then you should be compensated that way. You shouldn't be exploited. Because when you're brought in as a newcomer and you're paid a fraction of the wages as a quote unquote naturalized Canadian, that's not opportunity, that's exploitation. We need to end exploitation. We need to end it. Lots of things happening. We got lots of questions. We want to talk about sex work. Let's talk about sex work. I'm happy to talk about sex work. Sex work is work and it is a labor issue. And all workers need to be protected. All of them. Right? Like that needs to be the thing. And if people want to moralize about it, if they want to bring their religions into it and what have you and so forth, have your own opinion. Live your life the way that you want to live your life, but do not dictate to other people about how they should be living theirs. I think that's the essence of freedom. When conservatives talk about freedom, what are they really talking about? They're talking about freedom to think the way they want you to fucking think. That's what they're talking about. My freedom means you can think the way you want to think and live the way you want to live. I'm not going to interfere with that. You're consenting. You're an adult. You want to have a moment with somebody. You require that intimacy. Go do that. Pay for it. Compensate them. Let them be safe. It's a labor issue. Absolutely. And it is about migrants. There are lots of clear indicators about the way in which migrants are involved in this process. So, that's where we're at right now. It is a very uncertain time. I'm not promising you certainty except for this. I am certain that no matter what happens, we're going to continue to fight to make sure the working class values at Hamilton Center are well represented. That's exactly what we're going to do. Nationalizing resources, removing housing from capital, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Here's my thing, though, and this is where I might disagree, Andrew. That's okay. It sounds like you're a socialist. I'm a democratic socialist, too. I do believe that the basic necessities of life need to be decommodified and nationalized and shared. Do I think government should be running everything? No, I don't believe state capitalism works. But I do think government is the institution that is supposed to fairly and in a just way distribute the economy so that those that build the wealth can enjoy in its prosperity. And that is not the case right now. I believe in worker-owned co-ops. I believe in a cooperative economy. So I've just said, those that build the wealth deserve to keep it. The people who build the wealth are the workers. So they should deserve to keep it. So I think this idea of like infinite growth, where you're going to have increased shares and profits year after year after year after year after year, is economic violence. Why? Because the people who do not actually create the wealth are receiving its rewards. So in other words, a cooperative economy as an alternative would take the workers who are building the means of production to actually keep the means of production. If you're a big branch print, if you're going to go bankrupt, the workers should have the first right of refusal to buy that business and keep it a going concern. You know? Oh, you got me fired up. What's going on, Scott? We got people here on the chats. Shout out to everybody who's on Instagram. People are waiting for a savior instead of putting work in together as a community. Yes, there's no superheroes coming to save us. We need to save ourselves. Amen to that. Shout out to you, Clayton. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in. I'm going back and forth here on the chats. I did get to know or meet so many people on Parliament to the People. If you are online and you want to join us, feel free to do that. I'm going to put the link back into the chat and see if people are able to jump on. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and what you're all about. Oops, what do we got here? No, not that one. Can I pin this one? Send. All right, there it is. There's the link there. And I'm going to put it on Instagram as well. I don't know what's happening on the other platforms. So if you're tuning in on TikTok, your comments are not going to our group chat. I'm just going to tell you that now. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Sorry, Laura. I meant to do it here. This is what I meant to do. There it is. You can copy and paste that link, and you can jump on and let people know who you are, where you're from, and what you're all about. Going back to Instagram, seeing who's there. If you got comments or questions, you can put them in the chat as well. Happy to take that. Let's see this. Nick Rothwell, what's going on, my man? It's been a minute. This is like Romper Room when I get on here. I'm trying to keep up with everybody. We got Chris Sly. A Mark Carney victory will lead to much worse Pierre the next time around. Modern liberalism can't fight the rising fascism. It's just feeding the fire. You got that right. You got that absolutely right. It's not letting me post. If you're on Instagram, let me know if you're actually seeing this still, because I got two different chats going, and for whatever reason, it's not looking like it's working. Maybe I'll refresh and see what happens. Hopefully I didn't just kill the feed. Hopefully people are still seeing it on this now. Maybe not. I may have just killed the Instagram feed. Nope, you're still there. Awesome. I appreciate you. People are coming back on. Counselor Colleen, feel free. Appreciate you. Put your questions in the comments for those that are on. Parliament to the People. It is 10 o'clock. We are about to start our day. Campaign's in full swing. We're going to have some events. The way that we do things here in Hamilton is threefold. First of all, we look to have a good time. We really want people to feel like, like they have a purpose here with us. So no matter what happens in the election, we're going to need skills to organize in our communities. So my commitment to you is this: no matter where you are, if you're, miles and miles away and you can't come into our campaign office, but you want to phone bank with us, you want to join our digital team, you are welcome to do that. We invite you into the process of democracy if you have the time and the ability to do so. We recognize that not everybody does, but if you do, we would love to have you join us. And if you're in town, woo, we're going to have a good time. This is our commitment, that we're going to have joy. And no matter what happens with the misery that is happening all around us, that when you come through this office, we're going to have joy. We're going to meet amazing people. We're going to identify, engage, and enroll. We're going to train people. We're going to socialize, organize, and mobilize people right to the very end. Right to the very end. So that's our commitment. I'm going to jump back online tomorrow. Do I still involve myself in local politics? Nikki, I do. I do keep a close eye. I see that people are pretty frustrated locally, and I understand. I would say this as a former city councilor, look, city council is the dumping ground for all of the bad provincial and federal policies. So when Doug Ford sits on billions of dollars in surplus, while we have people living in tents, while people are working through their own drug use and addiction, while we have an economy that's turned upside down on its head, and he just wants to cut people checks in a very cynical way, that's a problem. Cities bear the brunt. When we have a federal government that refuses to invest in housing, that doesn't have adequate investments in healthcare, this is the result. What you see at the municipal level is often the symptom of bad provincial and federal policy. That's why I went from the municipality to the federal side, because I believe that to be true. I believe that to be true. Parliament to the people. I appreciate each and every one of you all for tuning in. I'm going to try to do this on the regular each and every morning. I'm going to try to jump on. Please do help us build a movement that is rooted in solidarity. Please do visit www.matthewgreen.ca. You can find out how to volunteer, request a lawn sign, donate, all of that good stuff. I appreciate you for tuning on. Have a wonderful day. Keep on fighting. Despite all odds, don't let those bastards get you down. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it going. Have a wonderful day. Peace.